Shadow people. Do you ever get the feeling you're being watched? You're watching TV or playing a game, perhaps you're reading a book, when suddenly you catch something in the corner of your vision. But when you turn your head to look, there's nothing there. You may have just encountered a shadow person. All over the world, people claim to see these shadow people. But what are they? A trick of the light? The imagination due to lack of sleep? Or maybe they are really people in the shadows that are shy of the living world. Tonight, I'm going to dive into some stories that I have seen on Reddit of other people's stories and their encounters with these shadowy figures. I'm also going to include a personal story I have of meeting one of these shadow people. So sit back, hit the lights, and enjoy as we dive into the dark world of the shadow people. This first story comes from a user on Reddit that has deleted their account, unfortunately. They say, I was probably 5 or 6 years old when I first saw them. If you're unaware of what a shadow person is, first off, you're lucky. But to explain, they are tall, skinny, featureless black shadows that wear no clothes, have no hair, nothing at all. I grew up in the town of Oceanside, California, and lived there most of my life. It is believed that shadow people linger in one place and will not follow you. I would see them here often. They weren't just in my house, but on the streets. Most common encounter I had was the man at the end of the bed. I slept at the top of my bunk. My sister was on the bottom, and I would often turn my head and see him. He was fairly tall, almost reaching my bunk. Shadow people do not speak, but they do look, and when they see you noticing them, they disappear. I like to believe they are shy. They are not harmful creatures. Nothing strange ever happened aside from the presence and being there. They never tampered with animals, humans, or objects. In fact, animals didn't see them at all. Not everyone does. Most of the time, the man at the end of the bed just looked around in very swift movements, but it still felt like they moved in pictures. Almost every time I saw him, he would vanish nearly immediately. There was one time, though, where my eyes met where his would be. That was astonishing to a 9 or a 10-year-old me. I was driving down the street one day when I saw another. There was one of the most clear shadow people I've ever seen. A woman, I think, in a brown coat was walking, and suddenly she was a shadow person. It followed her steps before vanishing. I only saw the woman turning the corner in the other direction before we drove off. That was the only time I recall having seen one actually move, walk, or run. I see them probably 50 times more. I moved into a rental in Idaho when I was around 11. I lived in a house in Washington since I was 12. I haven't seen them since California. Has anyone else seen them? I can't be alone. This second story also sees the shadow people as non-threatening. It comes from user SlendermanProxy666. This happened when I was around 5 or 7 years of age. During this time, my childhood room didn't have a door on the closet, only a thin layer of curtains that you could see through. This is important. Now, one night, I was trying to sleep, and I had my back facing the closet when I started to feel this weird and comforting gaze on me. Thanks to my childhood curiosity, I turned in bed only to see this tall shadow figure in my closet. I can still remember the figure clearly. It was very tall, to the point where it had been hunched over in my closet. It had a fedora too, which was weird, since no one in my house wore a fedora. It seemed to watch me until morning. Of course I got so scared of the shadow that I hid in the covers, but after having that figure approaching in my closet for months, I started to get used to it watching me and fell asleep more easily with facing the closet when it appeared. I named it Mr. Tallman. Now that it's been gone for years, I started to notice that there have been more appearances of these shadowy figures in my home, specifically when I'm alone. Maybe it's Mr. Tallman's family paying me a visit, or more randoms, but the gaze is still comforting. I wanted to share this since I recently watched a video on these shadow people, and I needed to tell the story to others. This next story comes from user Hamburger. My house isn't built on an ancient Indian burial ground or any of that. It is also a new build, as me and my family are the first to live in it. I first noticed weird things when I would go into the attic alone when I was around 13 years of age. I would go looking for Christmas presents early and see shadow people. I just brushed them off as being just that, shadows. But then I heard noises that always freaked me out. I tried my best not to go into the attic alone after that. But when I really noticed something was wrong was one night I was trying to sleep at around 3 a.m. I put my phone on the nightstand, and in the pitch black, I placed it on the edge and it fell off. I reached over my bed, only my torso and arms were hanging off, to grab it. While I was kind of moving my hand around looking for it, I heard this very clear word, night. It was loud in my right ear. It wasn't a very harsh tone, it was a loud female voice. My family was all asleep, and it was all quiet so nothing else made noise. Another experience with shadow people was on a stormy night. My dog sleeps downstairs, but it is a very bad fear of thunderstorms, so I usually let him sleep at my bed at night. When this happens, because he always needs attention and support during the storms, when I heard him whine, I went to the top of the stairs and froze. What looked like a very tall person, like a shadowy figure, slowly walking around below the stairs. It moved slowly and fluidly until it stopped, and just turned its head at me. No facial features, just a large shadow looking at me. I instantly went into my room, scared to death, until my dog scratched at my door for me to let him in. I let him in and calmed myself down. Another time with shadow people was when my sister texted me at 2 a.m. and said something was looking at her from the front of her bed. She couldn't make it out, but wanted me to come and reassure her nothing was there, as she didn't want to look. She was 18 and not so easily spooked, so I knew something was up. I went into her pitch black room and saw it. Same routine as it looks at me and then just disappears. 1 second there, next it was not. I had other experiences with them, but these seem to be the most dominant. They don't seem hostile, but I do wonder if these are a known thing, or am I losing my mind? I am in college and live in an apartment, so I only stay at home during the summer, and haven't seen them since I left for college. Has anyone else had any occurrences where they know or knew anyone who saw shadow people? This next story is a personal experience. When I was about 13 years of age, my mum and dad were away out for the night, and it was me and my cousin left in the house. She used to come and stay with me during the weekends, and I can remember her asking about going to have snacks in the kitchen. as we were watching or playing games down in my bedroom. And we went to the kitchen and started making snacks. My mum and dad live in a bungalow. My bedroom is one side of the house, my parents' bedroom is on the other. And as I left the kitchen, I glanced to the right and seen standing in their bedroom a tall man. By the foot of the bed, it would have been a tall man with a hat. No distinguishing features, no nothing, just black. Just a black shadow, a black mass. I could tell that he was a tall man wearing a hat. And I sprinted from the kitchen down to my bedroom. My cousin followed, and she was clearly shook at what had happened. And here's the thing. She asked me, why did I run? And I replied, I seen a shadow standing in my mum and dad's bedroom. And I asked her why she ran after me. She said she seen somebody standing in the kitchen at the same time I seen somebody standing in my mum and dad's room. My mum and dad's house is clearly haunted. There are other stories I would like to get into, but it's not for this video. My cousin hasn't stayed in that house on her own, or be in that house on her own ever since. And my partner doesn't like to stay in that house. I really hope you've enjoyed listening to some of these stories that I have found on the internet, and it's definitely something that I want to get a deep dive into in the future. Sleep tight.